Where do Formula One race cars come from? Well, many have begun their lives here at Motor Racing Developments, founded by Jack Brabham and Ron Tarnack, late in 1961. They produced the first Brabham F1 car that following season. The team won both the World Championships for drivers and constructors twice before Jack retired and sold the factory to Bernie Eccleston in 1971. Since then, 2 more world driving titles have been secured by the Brabham team with Nelson Piquet. Eccleston readily admits the design and manufacturing capabilities of his factory is one of Brabham's strongest advantages. And Chief Engineer Designer Gordon Murray is responsible for that cornerstone on which much of the team's success is built. The first conception of a simple modification or even the design of a complete new car takes place in the calculating mind of Gordon Murray. After that, it all becomes a finely coordinated effort of every department in the factory to create a 1,200-pound Grand Prix racer that is better than its predecessor. And better in F1 means quicker. You've won the last 2 out of 3 Grand Prix. One of the first rules in motor racing is if it works, don't change it. Why do you constantly keep striving ahead when things are going so well for you design-wise at the moment?
Well, there's 2 things. You need to be successful: a quick car and a reliable car. And on the reliability side, that's true. You shouldn't change something that works very well. But on the other hand, you've got 10 or 12 teams employing people all the time to make cars go faster and faster. So it's very easy to sit back and say we've got the best car at the moment and get run over. So you do need to continue developing.
So if you need to continue to develop, you also need to know how far to go.
That's the compromise between reliability and speed. It's purely that simple.
So you're constantly breaking new ground every time you put the pencil to the paper then?
Yes, we modify the car between every race, but you have to restrain the modifications with reliability in mind.
So where do your ideas come from? It must be a culmination of past experience and what you see other people doing and maybe a bright light of your own going on, yes?
Everybody in the design office sticks his oar in at some time or other, and you draw on past experience a lot. But occasionally somebody will have a new idea, something that nobody's ever done before, but that doesn't happen very often, in fact. Not if you're talking about concepts anyway, like ground effect or a brand new type of suspension or something. That happens once every 2 seasons, maybe.
So you're a believer in developing a known area as far as the design to its maximum?
Well, I think the innovation's important too. I mean, some teams don't innovate at all. We tend to bring out new ideas occasionally when they happen. But there's also smaller new ideas. I mean, we're bringing out new ideas all the time in detail. But if you're talking about new ideas at the concept level, then it doesn't happen that often, really.
Say Paul Rasha rang you up from BMW and he said, we have another 50 horsepower available with no problems relative to reliability. Now, let's say that had to mean a redesign of the rear suspension so you could put the power to the ground or something like that. Is that a group activity of the people here in the design department?
Yes, definitely, yeah. Although one person might get the responsibility for that rear suspension redesign, but that's something that you would instigate immediately, but probably not run it until it was fairly well tested.
So what happens after you've drawn it, you've calculated it as near as possible to perfection within the design studio? What happens once your piece of paper, your thought on paper, leaves this room?
Well, once it's been thought of, designed, and detailed, it has to be very accurately drawn and detailed. It leaves this room and gets turned over to the production department. And from there onwards, it's out of our hands, really.
Herbie Blash, manager of the Parmalat Brabham team. We've just left the design studio. What happens to a detailed piece of paper once it gets to your hands?
Well, the first thing that happens after the initial drawing, if we're talking about a car being built for the first time, the actual birth of a car, first of all, the drawings of the basic body shape would go to the pattern shop, and from the pattern shop we would make a wind tunnel model, which is out of wood. And from there, a full-scale drawing would then appear from the drawing office after the results of the wind tunnel, and a wooden mock-up of the car would be made.
So what happens after the pattern shop?
Well, from the pattern shop, if we're going to be talking about the shape of the car to start with, that then goes into the fiberglass shop, where a mold is made for the actual full-size fiberglass bodywork or carbon fiber bodywork. And also the same for the interior of the car, which is made in carbon fiber. We actually have two separate shops. One shop to look just after glass fiber and one to look after carbon fiber. So that's the basic car that you actually see on the track. Now, as you know, there's a lot more underneath the car than just pieces of carbon fiber. And
all the metal bits, suspension and chassis and so forth?
Yes, you're talking of around about 4,000 to 5,000 detailed pieces.
So where do they pass through the same system in another department, I suppose?
Well, yes, obviously everything starts from the drawing office. That is the hub. Now, if we're talking about rear suspension, for example, that will be made, first of all, in the machine shop, because basically all of the suspension now is machined. And then you have bearings, joints, etc., to go into the wishbone. Again, they are drawn. One or two things come from an outside supplier. For example, some of the bearings, which we don't make here ourselves. But bushes, etc., that go into them, that's made in another part of the machine shop.
So you earlier mentioned some 4,000 bits. Now, you said to me earlier that maybe 90% of the car is made here within these walls. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that is correct.
And where do they all meet up? Okay, we have the fiberglass coming from one direction, the carbon fiber from another direction, and the metal from a third direction. They all have to come together in one other department.
Well, yes. The first car that's built is built in, we have one special, rather secret workshop, which I don't think is...
That's the one we don't have any pictures of that one, that's true.
No, you won't be allowed in there. That's the first time that all the bits and pieces come together to actually form the car. Then, after the first car's been made, then the rest of the cars are actually assembled in the racing shop, because that's fairly straightforward. Everything should fit together, and that's the way that operates.
So after the secret development shop and probably track testing, you decide the final design, and it's actually assembled in the race shop.
Correct, yes.
And is that what's rolled out the door, the final product?
What's rolled out, that's it. That's what you see on the track.
Herbie, do you ever feel that your factory is in, as far as a facility, is in direct competition with other factories of other teams? I mean, as far as your capabilities to produce quality bits and pieces and designs?
I think we're the best team. We can't compare ourselves with Ferrari because we don't make our own engine. But compared with all the other British manufacturers and the French, I think we have better facilities than any of them.